I'd like to put on record how I feel about the protests of the last week or so, and what it's been like as America's response to the murder of George Floyd has sort of unfolded. I'm a mixed race American. My father was black and my mother's white. I was raised largely by white people, and I was raised mostly around white people. And for a large part of my life, I was raised by very poor white people, and I was raised around very poor white people. For the part of my life, especially the formative years of my life, that I wasn't raised around explicitly poor white people, I was raised in a community that had a very rural culture. So even though these folks weren't poor, for the most part, they carried a lot of the same attitude. They carried a lot of the same sentiments of poor white Americans. And I think that it gives me, I don't know if it's a unique perspective on what's happening right now, but it's definitely my own. And whether or not it's valuable just for me to watch again in 20 years or it's valuable to anybody in the present, I think it's worth it to speak on it. My experience with white Americans and my experience with the police growing up has always been complicated. I have distinct memories of unfortunate interactions with the police. Sometimes in situations where I felt like I might get my friends in trouble because of the color of my skin. I should also say that I've had really positive interactions with the police. I've met wonderful people throughout my life that were cops themselves, if not intimately connected to the police and police culture. However, there's something about the color of my skin, my family, and the way that I present myself that has always made it very easy for white folks to be kind to me. However, that doesn't mean that it hasn't precluded them from treating me the same way that they treat traditional Black Americans. So I think it's safe to say that I've been able to live large portions of my life in two worlds. And I think a large part of the story of my life is the story of somebody who exists in two very different worlds. So a lot of my experience through the protests and through this growing movement are much like the other experiences and stories that you've heard about from Black Americans. I've appreciated seeing so many white folks out protesting for me, for people that look like me, for Black Americans, for our rights and for our humanity. It's something that I didn't think I'd ever see. it feels a lot like when Barack Obama got elected. I'm going to try hard not to get emotional during this, but I apologize if it happens anyway. I have a vivid memory of election night in 2008. And it wasn't spent at home. It was spent at one of my best friend's homes. Who is white. And I'll never forget seeing this family who I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure up until 2008, it's a family that voted Republican. And they decided to vote Democrat in that election in no small part because they wanted to be a part of voting for the first black president. And when he won that election, the family cried. And I thought it was the most beautiful thing to see them get so emotional and to feel such intense feelings about that achievement. But the 10 years since have been really hard for Black Americans for a multitude of reasons. And now it sort of feels like, for whatever reason, or for many reasons, those same Americans, those same white Americans are taking their purpose back. This purpose that they felt back in 2008 to demand, to refuse to live in a racist America anymore. And I'm really appreciative of it. But I also need to say something to them, to my friends who are white, who are still resisting what they're seeing happen in their country. The first thing I want to say is that if you preface your opinion with the assertion that it is just an opinion, you are not inoculating yourself from criticism. An opinion is an argument. It's a statement. You're saying that you are identifying with this perspective of the world, in that you believe this thing about the world to be true. And if you make that argument with the expectation that other people won't participate in that argument, you are being unfair to your peers, and you are hiding. You're hiding from the responsibility you have to engage with your neighbors and other people in your community. So if you intend to put forth opinions, even if they're not your own, you need to be prepared to argue for them. We are adults, and we have a responsibility for our own expression. The right to our expression does not come without responsibility. And if you express things that upset your peers and other people in your community, they have every right to tell you that. With that, If you are expressing opinions, or if you are sharing other people's opinions or perspectives that serve to either misconstrue, diminish, devalue, or invalidate the experience of myself and Americans like me, you are liable to change the opinions that your friends have for you. And you have no right for that not to happen. And if it does happen, it doesn't mean that those people are bad people. It means that they don't like what the opinions that you are sharing say about who you are. So, if in this moment you are spreading the views and opinions that serve to, again, misconstrue, devalue, diminish, or invalidate the experience of the people who want to make America a better place for more people, you need to be prepared for people to think and feel differently about you. Opinions are not innocent. We are not children. The things that we say, whether or not it's in real life or on social media, matter. People will hold you accountable for the things that you say and do, or the things that you don't say and do. You're allowed to be conservative without diminishing the experience of Black people. You're allowed to be conservative without hating liberals. You're allowed to be conservative and still acknowledge that America has been inequitable for disadvantaged classes and vulnerable people. I'm not talking only about the people who are pushing back against the protests, or the people who are choosing, and it is a choice, to focus on the violence or the destruction of property in this moment instead of the legitimate protest. There are people who are not only doing that, but they are pushing opinions and perspectives that are coming from Black people that support a narrative about America that they're more comfortable with. If you are prioritizing a narrative about this country that you're most comfortable with over the legitimate experience of people of color in your life, they're gonna notice. And what we're seeing right now in these protests is that there's a lot of white folks in your life that are gonna notice as well. Don't fault them if they notice. Don't fault them if they confront you about it. They have every right. You have every right to your expression and your opinion as well, but it's not innocent. It's informed. It's informed from who you are and who you want to be. The Americans who are putting their well-being on the line right now in order to create a more equitable America for the generations that come after us, they are what this country has needed for a very long time. I guess really what I'm just trying to say is that I appreciate you. Thank you. You're doing what a lot of us don't have. You're doing what a lot of us can't afford to do. And we're not going to forget it. The folks that have chosen this time to get in the way of that, we're not going to forget that either.